What if you made a commitment to be neutral to all the different perspectives, to stop judging them, to start appreciating them and to start loving them as though they were your own? What if you approached life in this way, where you knew that in this life, right now, you're going to live through it as a man or a woman, as white or black, as Asian, as Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or whatever you are, conservative, liberal, capitalist, socialist, you're going to live through it with that perspective. And then when you die, you're going to live through it, you're going to be born again and then live through it through some other perspective. Of course, maybe a different time. This was first you were alive during the 21st century, then you'll die, then you'll experience it from the 22nd century, then you'll experience the earth from the 23rd century, then you'll experience some other planet from some other century, and it'll just keep iterating and iterating and iterating. The universe will keep iterating through every possible perspective until it understands itself from every possible angle, from every possible location. And all the locations and all the angles are infinite. So this process continues endlessly forever. And that is what the universe is. It's a never-ending process of self-reflection, of self-understanding. And as this self-reflection deepens and the understanding increases, the universe recognizes itself as being infinitely perspectival, and as it does so, it surrenders its attachment to individual perspectives and forms until eventually it reaches a sort of a critical mass of understanding where finally it falls in love with itself by falling in love with all of its diversity of perspectives, by surrendering its own selfish attachment to one specific perspective. And the way that it does that is by living through that perspective and understanding it fully, not just understanding it in theory, but actually living through it. Like I said earlier, to really understand a perspective, it's not enough to look at it from some other perspective. You actually have to incarnate and live through it. So to really understand what it's like to be a fundamentalist Christian, it's not enough while being an atheist to maybe attend a church meeting. Even that is more than most atheists will ever do in their life. See, most atheists are so disgusted by fundamentalist Christians, they think they're such idiots, that they wouldn't even attend a fundamentalist church revival meeting because they think it would be stupid and a waste of their time. But even if they did attend that meeting, they still really wouldn't understand what it's like to be a fundamentalist Christian. To really understand, they would have to die and reincarnate as a fundamentalist Christian and live through that. They'd have to completely surrender their atheism to really understand that. And then, of course, the same goes for a Christian. A fundamentalist Christian would never dare to go to a Middle Eastern mosque and pray, actually seriously pray 5 times a day or whatever they do in some Middle Eastern mosque. Because he would think that that's pointless, it's stupid, it's wrong, it doesn't tell me anything about the world, it's just delusion, it's falsehood, it's gonna detract from my Christianity, it's gonna somehow endanger my Christian identity or whatever. Or maybe it'll even be a betrayal of God to do such a thing. That's fundamentally what a Christian would believe. A fundamentalist Christian. I mean, there's different kinds of Christians, and there's different kinds of Muslims. Right? Some are more open-minded than others, but I'm sort of talking about the spiral dynamic stage blue ones. So for that Christian to really understand what it means to be a Muslim, he would have to die and reincarnate as a Muslim, fundamentalist Muslim, and experience that for a good 80 years. Not just for 1 year, for a full 80 years to get the full sense of it. And so now you see where this is going. So every consciousness, we'll use the word consciousness here. If what you are fundamentally is a consciousness, every consciousness, in order to fully understand what consciousness is, would have to incarnate and live through every possible way that consciousness could live. Every experience that consciousness could possibly have. This, of course, includes not just human experiences and not just experiences in the 21st century, but all centuries, all timelines, all planets, all living creatures and beings, including ants and insects and birds and trees and plants, and even inanimate objects like rocks, chairs, cars, and if there are other universes, through all the possible universes, through all the possible multiverses, all of it. So if consciousness experiences and lives through every single permutation of that, of every perspective, eventually it'll come to a point of complete self-understanding, which would be absolute infinity. It would complete a full cycle, of self-realization. And in so doing, the cycle begins sort of at, if we say the cycle begins at complete ignorance or completely limited perspective, as more perspectives are experienced by consciousness, it opens it up more and more and more to appreciating and wanting to explore more and more perspectives. This is actually a movement from fear into love. So we're going to start at a point of utter selfishness and fear and limitation of perspective. And then as we open up, we realize that, oh, actually exploring different perspectives, this is actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So we surrender more of our fears and more of our selfishness and more of our attachment to a particular limited way of being, and we become a little bit more unlimited, a little bit less limited, a little bit less limited, a little less limited. And as we do that, we cycle through more and more perspectives. As we do that, we start to fall in love with the diversity of what we are as consciousness, which is the diversity of all these perspectives. We start to fall in love with more and more and more and more of them until eventually we reach a point of absolute love, a point of complete impartiality and neutrality, because we recognize that all these perspectives are totally relative, they're completely equal. We integrate every single one of them until they all perfectly cancel out, leaving us with a pure infinite consciousness. And that's what God is. That's what you are in your highest form. God is all perspectives at once, without any bias towards any particular one, because there is no reason to be biased towards any particular one when you realize that your true essence is nothing, so you have no attachment to anything. You need nothing to be defended. You have no limit that you're trying to defend, and therefore you're fully satisfied with being every possible perspective simultaneously. Because in so doing, your abundance increases to infinity. Your diversity increases to infinity, and you realize your entire full scope as the whole universe, as consciousness. And you integrate all that into yourself, and you realize that that integration is what love is. It's what you are. It's what the universe is.